chocolate has existed as a drink for millennia, actually turning it into a bar wasn't possible until several key discoveries during the Industrial Revolution in the 1800s. In 1828, a press was invented that could extract the natural fats from the chocolate mass, known as cocoa butter. Then in 1847, it was discovered that adding additional cocoa butter back into the chocolate mass made it possible to mold solid bars of chocolate. But perhaps the most important discovery was made in Switzerland in 1879, when Rodolphe Lindt was rumored to have accidentally left a mixer running overnight with some of his chocolate in it. When he tested the batch in the morning, he discovered it improved the taste and texture of the chocolate. This process became known as conching. Conching transformed the chocolate bar from a gritty, rough texture to the smooth, aromatic chocolates we've now come to expect, and ultimately helped turn chocolate into the largely popular commodity it is today. Although I fermented and roasted my beans, there are still a few important steps that must be done before I can begin to conch my chocolate. First, I'd have to manually remove the outer shells of all my cacao beans. After 8 hours of repetitive motion, I finally had 4 pounds of my beans ready. Next, I took some of the beans and used an oil press to extract the cocoa butter I need for my chocolate. This was kind of a pain, and I think the oil ended up coming out of the wrong spot, but I did succeed at extracting enough cocoa butter. One important thing I discovered was that adding any water or moisture to my chocolate would ruin it by causing it to seize, so I had to dry out my sugarcane syrup and milk before I could add it to my chocolate. After drying overnight in the dehydrator, the milk turned into a thin, crusty material, which I broke apart and ground up in my blender. Then I tossed my dried sugarcane syrup into a blender, and in a matter of minutes, I had my sugar. With all my ingredients finally prepped, I headed to Cool Chocolate, where I met with Peter.
Hey Andy, how are you?
Good. So, you make chocolate, right?
I make chocolate.
Can you tell me a little bit about your company?
Yeah, we started a little over a year ago and opened in August. The genesis was really the Endurance Bar, which has got 8 grams of protein from pumpkin seeds and algae protein, which is a new ingredient.
Cool Chocolate does every step to make their chocolate, starting straight from the bean, including roasting it, grinding it, conching it, tempering, and molding it. So thanks for showing me the tour. It's really interesting to see it on an industrial scale. Now I've done most of those steps myself, but now what I've left to do is the conching. So what's the importance of the conching? Why is it a very important step?
Okay, mostly you're doing particle size reduction. In order for it to have a nice mouthfeel, you want to be at 20 microns or below in the size of the particles. Another part of it is that off flavors tend to evaporate, like the acetic acid that's from the fermentation. Lactic acid, those will evaporate to some degree. In my world, dark chocolate starts at 70% of the weight of the chocolate comes from the cocoa bean. In other words, it's either the nibs or it's an additional amount of cocoa butter.
Yeah.
The reason we add the cocoa butter is that it gives you a more pleasant mouthfeel. So we're going to do a 70% dark, an 85% dark, and then a 70% dark milk. We have 1,830 grams of beans, so we're going to split it 3 ways. We're going to put them in the queeze and just buzz them up and roughly grate them so that they're small enough for the machines. This is a little cold, and that's why it's clumping up. Yeah, see, so now it's starting to go. So now we just gotta let it rip.
After grinding for a while, the once solid beans started to look like chocolate. So it's time to add the cocoa butter, sugar, and dried milk. The conches would have to run for at least 8 hours, so I'll have to come back later to finish the process. The following morning, I returned to Cool, and we ran the conches just a little bit longer to help raise the temperature of the chocolate before testing its final consistency.
37. We really wanted to get up to 42, 43 before we try to temper it. I think what we're going to do is I'm going to get the heat gun, and we're going to heat them up so that we can get them up to the 42. Yeah, see, I'm already at 42. Doesn't take a lot.
Using a micrometer, we measured exactly how finely the chocolate had been ground. With the chocolate finally at the right consistency, it was time to temper it.
So we're going to take about half of this and just put it on the board. So then you move it around. This is to try to form all the same size crystals, beta 5 crystals, that make the chocolate have a nice snap and keep it from blooming. Blooming is where it turns white after it melts and hardens up again. It's starting to get a little bit thicker. Okay, yeah, see now it's kind of thick.
Yeah.
and it's all smooth. There's a test that people do that you take a piece of paper and you just dip it a little bit in like that. It should have a sheen on it. It shouldn't be dull. It should be shiny, and then it should also snap.
That means it's been tempered?
Then it's been tempered correctly, yeah.
Getting used to the motions to properly temper the chocolate was tricky at first.
It's awkward if you're a righty. You want to spread it out a little bit thinner next time. But that'll work, that'll work. Yeah, it's probably there now. So let's put it into that bowl. Time is of the essence at the moment. That's good. This is called the flood and scrape method. In case there's any bubbles, yeah, I had a little bubble there.
As I moved on from the 70% dark chocolate to the milk chocolate, I started to get the hang of it.
Yep, so now put it back in.
After quickly cooling in the fridge, Peter and I got to sample my freshly made chocolate.
All right, here's the milk chocolate. We didn't do such a great job molding these. There you go. And it should be shiny. Yeah, it's got a snap. Yeah, it's tempered chocolate.
It's good. It's very dark. I can taste the fire roasting and the smoke to it, I think. It's good though.
I would call it rustic.
Rustic, yeah.
And not in a bad way, but yeah. Rustic. It's very earthy, and you can taste the smoke.
Yeah.
Now, if you wanted to make it like milk chocolate, you put a lot more sugar in.
Yeah.
Same amount of milk, just more sugar.
Okay. All right, so thanks to your help, I now have the 3 different chocolates. So just got to turn them into bars now, so thanks.
Thank you.
Subscribe now to keep up to date with new episodes of How to Make Everything as they are released.